What's up, y'all? Talon here. The first regional of Regulation H is happening this weekend, the Baltimore Regionals, and I thought it would be a good idea to showcase the best teams, or at least the teams you should most be prepping for coming into the tournament. There's always going to be rogue picks that end up winning or doing very well in the first tournament of a regulation. Just look at Regulation G, where a Miraidon team came out of nowhere to win the tournament, and very similar compositions ended up doing well throughout the season and eventually winning the World Championship. So not proclaiming that I'll be able to predict the winner or the main breakaway star of the tournament, but I do think these are the teams that will be the most common at the top tables, and you should definitely have a strong matchup into, or at least some familiarity of what they're doing, how they typically play, if you want to do well yourself. If you enjoy this sort of analytical content, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. Haven't been putting out too much Regulation H. I was prepping for Baltimore Regionals the previous week, and then basically I had a funeral come up where I'm actually not able to attend anymore, so I have a wealth of knowledge in the format that I am unfortunately not going to be able to get to use this weekend, but I do want to share that knowledge with y'all. I ended up peaking on, I think, the Pokemon Showdown ladder best of 3 at 4th overall, getting to 17, I think it was like 1720 was my final rating before I stopped for a bit. The folks in the top 3 slots were like all close to 1800, which is really wild if you have played Pokemon Showdown before. That's very difficult to achieve, but yeah, these are just went on a tangent there, but that is all to say that I do know a little bit of what I'm talking about in regards to what is common right now, and these are some of the more common teams, or at least what you should be prepped for Baltimore, or as a spectator, be familiar with coming into the tour. So let's get into it. Starting off, we have a rain team that was basically won the Victory Road tournament by Taro Akata. I think they also won the previous Victory Road tournament before the World Championship, so definitely on a streak here, but this is a pretty standard rain composition with the Pelipper setting up the Drizzle to allow the Archaludon's Electroshot to charge in one turn and give it a special attack boost, and hit with a base 130 Electric type move, as well as the Basculegion give it the Swift Swim. Without needing Tailwind to set up a speed control, the Basculegion is going to be outspeeding things. It's definitely very versatile. There's things like, basically, things can try and set up Sunny Day next to a Typhlosion or something like that, or even Talonflame can try and set up Tailwind in front of you, but it usually just doesn't work because Basculegion can outspeed those Pokemon in Aqua Jet before the priority Tailwind or Sunny Day goes up. That's a cool option that the Choice Band set can do, and overall it's just a powerful Pokemon. Kingambit is typically on these teams, or Goldango. We'll go into the Goldango comp later, but on this one, typically I've seen Swords Dance, but Taro won with a low kick variant to deal better with opposing Kingambit, and then a Salamence is probably the most interesting Pokemon in the team, not Hurricane running Air Slash, just so that you can lead it without needing Pelipper to be brought or on the field at the start of the battle, so you can still have a flying type move active. That's pretty cool. It's very similar to the idea that, the same basically team concept that Jody Azraeli was able to get top 4 at the first Regulation A tournament. Also a Terra Steel, Draco Meteor, Life Orb, Salamence with Tailwind, so just basically valuing the Intimidate to allow you to beat your opponent's physical type Pokemon a little bit better, as well as having some more consistent flying types damaged, because Pelipper can go down pretty quickly. You want to be switching it in and out to get the rain active, so having a secondary Pokemon that's a bit bulkier and harder to knock out and outspeed in the Salamence is definitely very appreciated. Zooming back out, I want to look at the other most common rain team I have been basically seeing on ladder is the basically same 4. The Pelipper, Basculegion, Archaludon, and Amoonguss are more or less the same. Typically we see Clear Smog. Sometimes you'll see Protect over Clear Smog, but it definitely makes the Dondozo matchup a little easier. I do think Pollen Puff can be satisfactory with Incineroar on the team, as opposed to basically the Salamence. If you go for a Terra Grass early or something like that, you can easily just go for Fake Out, Parting Shot, Pollen Puff, Chains. Archaludon actually doesn't take that much damage even from boosted order up, so it's able to answer back with Electroshots or Draco Meteors even after the initial drop of the Draco Meteor. Because of Unaware on Dondozo, it actually ignores drops as well as boosts on opposing Pokemon, so you can kind of take advantage of that to beat them there. And then the Incineroar and the Amoonguss combination means you can very easily support the Goldango to sweep opposing teams if they prep too hard for the Archaludon or the Basculegion. You can end up just sweeping them with this very offensive spread type damage, whereas the rest of the Pokemon on Rain are typically just single targets, so you might have a follow me line into those sort of teams. The Goldango basically just goes in the face of that with the Nasty Plot Make It Rain combo, with the Metal Coat doing very big damage after one Nasty Plot. There is actually one more rain team I wanted to cover, and it's actually the lone Mouseape team on this list as well. Not because I don't think Mouseape is very good, but it hasn't done very well in online tournaments, which, maybe the Mouseape people are just like saving it for a rainy day. Pun intended, we do have the Pelipper Archaludon combination here, but this team won the first big tournament. I don't remember exactly what it was. Maybe it was a trainer, or basically a trainer school tournament, which is a large, I think, Italian tournament. But I do remember, I think it was the Himi tournament with basically a ton of players before the World Championship, a showcase for Regulation H. My friend Austin was able to win this with a cool Pelipper Archaludon team, no Basculegion, instead going for a Mouse Hold and Annihilate mode. Basically, the Mouse Hold with the safety goggles able to ignore Amoonguss's Rage Powder, which would otherwise navigate around your beat up. You can also taunt an Amoonguss if they try to spore your Annihilate and live a boosted Rage Fist. If you're +1, they usually shouldn't be able to live, but if you are not boosted yet, they can live that, so there's definitely some mind games there. But you can just taunt them so that they can't spore, and then go for a beat up the next turn. This also works against Follow Me users that are trying to follow me your beat up. Just go for taunt, bulk up with the ape, and then beat up next turn. So that's a cool combo. Sinistcha works really well with both Archaludon and Annihilate that are setting up and trying to basically take as many hits as possible to either give them a stamina defensive boost to boost up body press, or obviously boost up Rage Fists. You can also beat up your own Archaludon. There's some great synergy there to boost up your Archaludon instead of your Annihilate turn 1, which is a cool alternative to the special sweeping mode with the Electroshot. You can go for the physical mode with body press. So overall, it's a pretty cool team. Might be a little outdated for the metagame. I have seen Hydreigon over the Incineroar slot just because it doesn't have a lot of usage typically, just because it doesn't always get brought that often. So could see a Hydreigon over this, but yeah, this is a very early composition, and we haven't seen Mouseape really do as well since then, so could be an indication that Mouseape might actually not be worth prepping that much for. Your embedded solutions to the metagame just kind of naturally handle it, but not something to sleep on just yet in my opinion. Now going away from Rain and more towards Trick Room teams, I do want to cover the hard Trick Room teams. I would be remiss not to do that. They're partially Sun teams. A lot of them also have oops, this is the wrong one, but yeah, the hard Trick Room teams typically have the Torkoal and the Lilligant as a Sun mode. Basically, you can lead the Torkoal Lilligant if you think that your opponent will be able to outlead your Trick Room, PsySpam option, and then have the After You plus Eruption, or Leaf Storm, or not Leaf Storm, the Leaf Blade Close Combat, immediate offense of the Lilligant, or just go for fast Sleep Powders to basically clear the way for Torkoal to go for Charcoal, Terrifier Eruptions, or just Toy Specs Eruptions in some circumstances. But overall, yeah, a very strong team. Basically, some of these compositions have, that's a little easier to view, huh? They'll almost always have the Indeedee and either the Armarouge or the Hatterene. Sometimes both, but I haven't seen a lot of that. This one happens to. And then Ursaluna is going to be your main physical sweeper on these teams with a substitute set. It's really strong against opposing double protects to stall out your Trick Rooms. If you have the substitute on the Ursaluna, they might be less inclined to go for that. You can kind of get some reads that way, where they expect you to just substitute or protect, get your Flame Orb, and then just knock something out with Headlong Rush. That can be pretty cool. And then the Armarouge with Meteor Beam. Incineroar can be pretty annoying for these sort of teams with the Dark typing against the PsySpam mode. You can also taunt things like Indeedee, Parting Shot of Hatterene. The interaction with that, with Magic Bounces, it actually will switch out the Hatterene, which is pretty cool. So if you can knock out the Indeedee with your partner, and then go for the Parting Shot into the Hatterene, it switches them out, which is a cool strategy. But if they lead the Armarouge and just Meteor Beam you, you will just go down. So that is also a great option there. This is all kind of the meat and potatoes of PsySpam Hard Trick Room though, nothing really new. What you have seen that is pretty new this metagame is actually the addition of a Choice Specs Terranormal Zora Hisui to introduce even more mind games. Usually, at least when you're playing PsySpam on lead, you're like, okay, I either got outled, or I kind of got what I expected, and now we can just play the game from there. Zora Hisui kind of like definitely messes that up a fair bit, just because you can lead Indeedee plus a Trick Room user, and there's literally no way to know whether, because Gallade and Armarouge don't have activation abilities like Pressure or anything like that, that would indicate that it's not the Zora Hisui. Basically, you can just lead either of them with the Indeedee, and then instead of going for Follow Me Trick Room or Trick Room and attack with the partner, you can go for Helping Hand, Terranormal Hyper Voice, which will knock out a lot of the counterplay to these type of Pokemon on lead. You also outspeed them because you're a very fast Pokemon, 110 base speed, going very far in this metagame. You can also go for like Flamethrower if they have a Goldengo or something like that, a Hyper Beam if you just really need to clear something off the field, and then Shadow Ball. Also for the Goldengo, but typically they might Terra Steel in front of you. So got to be wary of that. With the Flamethrower covers that a little bit better, but overall definitely a very annoying fold. And then Gallade, really you're dedicated, not necessarily Dondozo answer, but if you do get into Trick Room, Sacred Sword is doing a hefty chunk. It's also solid against Archaludon, Wide Guard very important against things like Goldengo or Earthquake, Garchomp that would otherwise be able to threaten your Trick Room, basically threaten your Trick Room leads while you have the Indeedee on the field, which would otherwise redirect with Follow Me Everything. Having Wide Guard Gallade as at least team preview counterplay against that is very important as well. Now going into what I actually believe is the strongest Trick Room team coming into the tournament. Not necessarily this 6, but I do think Porygon 2, Incineroar, Amoonguss is very well primed for this tournament. Goldengo is probably going to be slotted on there just because Incineroar and Incineroar, Amoonguss, and Goldengo pair up really well, so it's kind of a waste not to have it on the team. Ursaluna is definitely the most popular sweeper right now. I've also seen Primarina with some offensive sets being used to great effect on ladder as well. Tyranitar was able to get top 4 at the Victory Road September Challenge by Fede Campo as well as Marco Fierro, but I do think that it's maybe not the ideal slot. It does cover things like Typhlosion, Hisui, the Typhlosion with Eruption very well. It deals with PsySpam, which can otherwise be a pain for these sort of Trick Room teams very well as well. But it does also open you up to like opposing Goldengo, I think can be a little bit tricky for this team. It's good against King Gambit, which would otherwise be kind of a problem for the team, but I do think that I'm not entirely sold on Tyranitar. We could see some other scrappy Pokemon in that slot that can handle some of the problems that the team otherwise has. But the general concept of this team is to get the Trick Room up, get the Ursaluna in safely with the Flame Orb. Gut said, I've seen Earthquake, I've seen Substitute to, Earthquake to deal with Redirection a little bit better, and Substitute to deal with Double Protects and Fake Out, cycling a bit better. Overall, it's a very strong team. It's not really going to overwhelm you with just like pure compositional strength. Like it's not going to overwhelm you turn 1 and just like knock up with your Pokemon, but it really sets you up later on in the game to like completely choke you out with strong defensive play. So I think that in early formats, whoever figures out the strong defensive teams earlier has a huge advantage, and I do think this team is on the right track for that. Some of the interesting elements on the team is the Porygon 2. I've seen Terra fighting with the Terra Blast to really threaten King Gambit a little bit more, to free up that last slot to maybe threaten something else to where you don't need it as a King Gambit answer. If you play like Safety Goggle, Swords Dance King, it's really, really difficult for this combination to break that if you don't have a strong Terra type into it on the Porygon 2. So having a strong defensive type to resist the Dark type moves as well as knock it out with a Terra Blast is pretty cool there. All right, now moving on to more hyper-offensive teams, I think I'll go. So yeah, first off, we have Dondozo, which is probably the strongest team, or at least one of the stronger hyper-offensive compositions. I kind of define it as that, but there are more defensive combos of Dondozo Tatsugiri. This is the one that Gabriel Legati was able to get second place at the VR challenge. Basically, the Dondozo not doing anything too complex. It is the Leftovers Order Up Earthquake Wave Crash set, which is a little worse now that Rillaboom is in the game. It's not as strong as in Regulation A, where you ordered up into a Protect. It would still activate the attack boost, which was pretty crazy, but yeah, still very strong despite Primarina being in the metagame. The rest of the Pokemon in the team deal with it pretty well. I don't consider Primarina to be especially strong against Goldengo. Glimmora can hit it with a strong Sludge Bomb. This one is Assault Vest, so you're really taking the Hyper Voices pretty well. You can get a Mortal Spin off, and generally the goal of this Glimmora is to get Mortal Spins off Poison Pokemon for Dondozo to basically have them chip down for Earthquake later in the game. If you get a Toxic Spikes up, whether it be with a Self Brave Bird, which is definitely an option on this team, or a Self Earthquake next to Terra Grass, that's a solid option as well if you really want the poison to go up. But overall, I think this team deals exceptionally well with Primarina, which is the as well as I don't think it's actually that strong into Amoonguss. You do have the Goldengo and the Dragonite, which deal pretty well with it, but you do have to be careful of Amoonguss, I think, with Clear Smog rising up a little bit. But Haze Primarina, which is most people's slap-on answer for Dondozo right now, is not that strong into this team, which is a big strength of it. You do often focus on the Dondozo components of these teams, but yeah, the Talonflame, Goldengo, Glimmora, Dragonite mode, I know Gabriel was able to take these 4 exclusively to a lot of wins. People expecting the Dondozo, over-prepping for it, and then sweeping them with these 4. That's kind of what a strong Dondozo player and team needs to bring to the table. We've also seen over the Dragonite a Focus Sash Palmot, which can basically play aggressively with the Goldengo or the Dondozo early game, and then Revival Blessing it later in the game to basically just go for it again, which is a cool strategy, which I think got second at the first regional, as well as getting first place at the second regional in Regulation A. So basically just recycling a lot of concepts from Regulation A to great success here. The next Hyper Offense team is a team that Wolfey was able to take to overall. I think he got I think he went 7-3, but he was like the second highest ranked, 7-3 at the VR tournament. Maybe it was like 6-3. I don't exactly know, but overall a very strong representation of Typhlosion Hisui. I do think that this sort of team, maybe not exactly, but I do think the core of Tailwind user, Tailwind user with Sunny Day, very notable, with Typhlosion, and then Ursaluna Bloodboon is a very potent offensive combination. I do think you kind of need a fighting type to deal with Tyranitar, as well as priority blocking to deal with King Gambit, which can otherwise be really painful to deal with. Clefairy, I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that we're on the right track here with a priority blocker and a follow me user. I think Indeedee is generally a little stronger. I have seen some Serena. I'm not totally sold on it, but yeah, I think the combo of these, basically Typhlosion, Ursaluna, Fighting type, Tailwind, and then follow me, or really just Indeedee in my opinion, and then one last, can really be a strong combination coming into this regional. I think Delphox in this slot, like basically Indeedee, Annihilate, Ursaluna, Tailwind user, Typhlosion, and then Delphox is kind of a sleeper pick. It's a very fast Psychic Terrain, basically expanding force spammer that is even able to outspeed Garchomp, which is very rare in this meta. So I do think it's like actually has some promise. It pairs well with the Whimsicott Sunny Day. Yeah, but still opens yourself a little bit up to that Tyranitar that the other Pokemon are weak to, so got to be wary of it. I don't necessarily think this team is going to win the tournament or even get relatively close to it, but because Wolf used it in a stream and his name is attached to it, you're going to see a lot of it probably earlier in the tournament with people just copying their favorite player. The last Tailwind team I want to look at is this one, which was able to win the Nino Pokebros Invitational. Typically we see either an Amoonguss or a Rillaboom. I think Rillaboom's a little bit more common. Tauros, I have seen Pre-Marina as an option just to be a little bit, basically either it's going to be Pre-Marina and Rillaboom, which deals with the Dondozo by going for Fake Out plus Haze, or it's going to be Amoonguss, which can just go for, oh no, Clear Smog. That's kind of surprising, but the combination of Tauros' Intimidate and Spore can be effective enough. You have Will-O-Wisp on the Talonflame, so I wouldn't say this team has an especially strong Dondozo matchup, but in Tailwind, Goldango is chipping it pretty hard. It definitely does have some game into it. I think the Rillaboom Pre-Marina is definitely stronger against Dondozo, but maybe generally weaker, not sure entirely. I'm a big fan of Amoonguss just generally on hyper-offensive teams because it lets you handle Trick Room teams very well. But yeah, the general concept of this team, finally getting back to the actual team, not just the tech choices, is the Talonflame, the Goldango, and the Garchomp. So Talonflame is able to play a supporting role with Tailwind, Taunt, and Will-O-Wisp to allow the Garchomp to go for fast Earthquakes under Tailwind, or the Goldango to go for Terra Steel, Make It Rains under Tailwind. So that's really cool. And then you have the defensive backbone of the team with the Water, Grass, and the Tyranitar is actually pretty common. It handles opposing rain teams really well, which the others can kind of struggle with. You can turn off the Pelipper's Drizzle, chip their Focus Sash down, and then also stop Electroshot from going off, which is basically a lot of people's answer to the Goldango on the Chaladon teams is basically set up the rain and go for the Power Shot or the Electro Shot. But if you have the Tyranitar Sand on the field, you can stop that from happening and then basically just 2-hit KO them with a Shadow Ball most of the time. Overall, not much to say about these teams. They are just very offensive, but they do have a strong defensive backbone, which I want to point out. But yeah, overall, one of the teams I'm looking at coming into the tournament, I feel like there's some strong offensive Tailwind players that, like Steven Maya is like someone that comes to mind. I feel like he used a team pretty similar to this to Top Cut earlier in the 2023 season, or maybe it was it would have been 2023. So I'm expecting like players like that definitely have a lot of experience on these Tailwind, more balanced Tailwind teams to do pretty well with this type of team. All right, not a lot more to say here, but I do want to point out the most common balanced team right now, in my opinion, is this Volcarona balance. Basically, typically has Volcarona, King Gambit. I have seen Tyranitar, but usually a dark type here. Generally, the focus of the team is basically just beat them by using type synergy really well. It's not a consistent strategy, but oftentimes you'll have like Rillaboom and Volcarona with the Quiver Dance Fake Out combination with Leftovers and Grassy Terrain and Terra Grass. You're actually threatening pretty well defensively. Like you can heal up every turn you're hit by 12% with the Grassy Terrain and the Leftovers, and then another 12% with the Protect. So like a Citrus Berry every turn, which is pretty cool. With Grassy Terrain, Terra Grass, +1 Quiver Dance, you're actually taking some knockouts that you wouldn't exactly expect. We've seen, like if you expect your Pre-Marina to be able to taking a Giga Drain before you've gone for the Terra on the Volcarona, you can go for the Terra, switch into the Rillaboom, and then at +1 you should knock it out before they can go for Haze and really ruin your fun, so that's cool. King Gambit, I've seen Assault Vest on these teams. This one is just Black Glass's Low Kick, which is a set that's becoming more popular, but I've also seen Assault Vest, Terra Fire. Tauros is going to be your water type of choice. We do have the Fire Water Grass Core, which is present on the other variant of this. We have a Clefable, which typically is your Dondozo counter, interestingly enough. Basically, you go for Skill Swap onto your Volcarona or another Pokemon, but usually your Volk, because it, with the Terra Grass, pairs pretty well into that type of Pokemon, and on lead, it can beat the not the Dragonite, but the Goldango that would otherwise threaten the Clefable. So that's a cool combo. You Skill Swap Unaware from your Clefable to your Volcarona. Suddenly the Dondozo is effectively not boosted anymore, and you can actually go for a 1v1 with the Terragrass Volcarona into their Dondozo a little more safely. Generally, the last Pokemon this team is going to be a poison type. We have seen some Power Herb Glamora with Meteor Beam. I feel like a Mortal Spin bulkier set could also do pretty well just because of the slow-paced nature of the team. Everything on it is pretty bulky, has a high base stat total, it's going to be tanking hits pretty well, so a longer battle might benefit you a little bit more than your opponent. But we've also seen Haze Gengar as a proactive answer to opposing setup Pokemon, as well as Dondozo. You can haze away their boosts, that's cool. And then there is another variant of this team that got, I think it was top 4, maybe it was top 8 in the Victory Road Challenge, but the top team of this archetype right now, like I was mentioning, the Swords Dance Kingambit here with the Terra Dark. Very strong with the Fake Out and Redirection, which really benefits this Volcarona. But on this team, instead of the Tauros as an Intimidate user, we're dropping Intimidate for a very proactive answer to Dondozo, dropping Unaware Skill Swap on the Clefable with that in mind to go for a Haze Primarina option with the Fake Out on Rillaboom that's very consistently beating most Dondozo if they have set that up already. I don't think I commented on it on the previous team, but the Clefable on these teams will usually be Safety Goggles. Sometimes they're Citrus Berry, but the Safety Goggles just effectively makes you so strong into Amoonguss on these teams, which would otherwise potentially shut down your setup. Like they could Clear Smog your Volcarona, Spore your Kingambit, all that would be really annoying, but the Clefable Safety Goggles can kind of hold all that together. And then the last Pokemon in this team, the poison type of choice is the Sneasler here. You could go Grassy Seed on Burden with the Rillaboom. I'm partial to the Fake Out set. I think it's definitely just really strong. Having the option to go for at least 2 Dire Claws really can put the odds in your favor over the course of a best of 3, and just really make your opponents mad. Like, this is one of the more tilting Pokemon that you can play, especially with Poison Touch, Fake Out, Dire Claw. It's super annoying to play against overall, but yeah, the stats on this Pokemon are kind of crazy. 130 attack, 120 base speed makes it basically faster than everything in the meta that is not holding a Choice Scarf or is a Dragapult, so that's a spectacular speed tier. And yeah, even with basically Dire Claw not being that strong of a move, 80 isn't that crazy. With a Terra Stellar close combat option that you can kind of pop at will, you can really just make this Pokemon such a menace even outside of Dire Claw. So overall, this is probably one of the more popular balanced teams coming into the tour. Yeah, the Fake Out, as mentioned on the Rillaboom, very important for the setup for Volcarona and Kingambit. So really impressive team, probably going to be one of the more dominant balanced teams coming into the tour. So that is going to be my coverage of the top teams coming into the Baltimore Regionals. If I had to pick one, it would actually probably be this one. I think it might have the biggest target on its back, but I think if you figure out the last slot, the Goldengo and the Tyranitar slots, you do have a very strong team on your hands. It's just one of the more refined teams defensively in the format. There's also some Electabuzz offensive teams that I do have my eye on. I didn't cover in this video just for the sake of time and just because they're not that common, but there is a couple of Electabuzz teams on my radar to do pretty well. There's a Porygon 2 Primarina offensive set that I think has been dominating the ladder, and I wouldn't be surprised to see like that player be an American player and just like go all the way to like top 4 or even win the tournament overall. So overall, excited to see what happens at the first Regulation H tournament up. If you enjoy these sort of analytical videos, please subscribe, leave a like, and let me know what sort of Regulation H comment you want to see in the future. And yeah, with all that being said, peace y'all.